Okay, so we are going to talk in this second panel today. We are going to talk about Sino-Indian film co-production, challenges and opportunities. We have in our panel, Xiang Liu. She's a PhD candidate from University of Nottingham. Sri Kishore, a filmmaker from Hong Kong. He's an Indian origin filmmaker who's making films in Hong Kong, and he's made a Cantonese Bollywood style film recently. Zhao Zhu, who you can see here just next to me, he's my colleague and a teaching fellow here at University of Nottingham, China. Abbas Muzaffar, he's a filmmaker based in India, and he was a classmate of mine when we were doing our film school together. And he was a BBC correspondent, and he's a filmmaker now. So, and we have got another guest joining us from Nepal. I've just received his particular profile. So apologies for that. I couldn't include him in the slide. So Chandra Kejhav, welcome to our panel. And he's a film producer, promoter, and the CEO of Mountain River Films, a film production and sales company based in Mumbai and Kathmandu. So welcome to you all. And as a moderator, what I'm going to do, I'll ask you a few questions, but before I do that, I'll just set the scene as to what is happening, so that because there are lots of students today who are listening to our particular panel, and I'm just going to set scene as to what is happening. So we talk about China and India's filmic soft power beyond Hollywood. And of course, these are two big film industry, and lots of things are taking place between the two. And of course, when we talk about Chinese cinema back in India, the first name every Indian will take is of Bruce Lee, And when you talk about Indian cinema in China, then the first name most of the Chinese would take is Amir Khan. So two giants, but of course, when I was growing up, when I was a kid, my grandfather was a very big fan of Bruce Lee. So he would take us to almost all the Bruce Lee films. So, one of the aspirations was as a kid was to know how to do karate and kung fu. And in India, you will generally find that kind of interest in every other gym, while they would sport, posters of Sylvester Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger. But more important than those two Hollywood stars, it was Bruce Lee, which would be in every gym where people would be like wanting to emulate what he would do, both in terms of physical appearance and his particular, whole martial arts skills. So what is happening, and I'll just give you a kind of a snapshot, that India and China are the leading film markets worldwide from 2007 to 2018 by the numbers of film produced. So in 2019, India was number one with 1,813 films, and China was the second largest market in 2018 with 1,082 movies produced that year. The number of films produced in China and South Korea has increased dramatically in recent years, with China producing over 1,000 movies in 2018 compared to 526 in 2010. So there's a huge jump, and this is the statistics that I've got from Statista, and it's quite an eye-opening thing that how film industry in China has grown. In terms of film market worldwide in 2019, by the number of tickets sold, actually, China overtook India. India was the number one market in terms of the number of tickets sold, but in 2019, China became the number one market in terms of the film tickets which were sold. So with 1.65 billion movies tickets sold that year. And I'm just talking about pre-COVID here, because during the COVID time, cinema going became a kind of an impossible task. Until date, film industries are trying to get back onto the cinema mode. Even in China at the moment, it doesn't, it's not the way it should have been. So talking about any data in between wouldn't give you a proper idea. So yeah, we'll see how it actually goes in next 2 years. Probably by 25, we'll get to know more about it. So when it comes to Chinese or Hong Kong cinema's influence in India, the two big giants, like if Bruce Lee was 1970s and 80s, he was dominating the film goers kind of imagination about Chinese cinema. Then Jackie Chan, again, by mid 80s, in fact, late 70s and mid 80s, he starts dominating with his kind of comedy action films. And he became huge in India. And in fact, Jackie Chan understood that his kind of power, superpower status in India, and then he ends up going to India and doing a couple of co-production films with India. Uh, in 2014, before 2014, India and China didn't have a co-production. In 2014, when Chinese president visited India, he ended up getting this film co-production treaty signed between India and China. And there was some good movements happening, until 2019, but after COVID happened, things have been in a kind of a standstill mode at the moment. And what you see also is Indian cinema's influence in China. And of course, as I said, Amir Khan's movies right from Three Idiots and thereon, Dangal and Secret Superstar, Dhoom, all these films have, dominated, box office. People, really took interest in that. But instead of me giving my opinion, it will be our guests who will be talking more about that. So you'll hear from them. Some of the Indo-China co-productions, and one of the things which China did with its own policies in terms of One Belt and One Road and Action to the East policy, that it created these films. In fact, in this film called The Kung Fu Yoga, which starred Jackie Chan, in fact, within the film, Jackie Chan talks about One Belt, One Road and why this policy is important. And, there is a kind of discussion between Jackie Chan and the heroine, I think it's Disha Patani, and she says, yes, it's really good for India and China to come together with this particular thing. Of course, politically, there might be some different opinions, but in the cinema, in the film, they try to bring a kind of a cohesion. An Indian co-production, which was Chandni Chowk to China, it bombed badly in India and anywhere else as well. But it was a big ticket film, and it was a very big budget film. Then there was this this Buddies film, which was made in China. I don't know what happened to it, but these were the kind of films which were coming in. So again, I'll go back to my panelists today, and I'll pose them some questions. And then at the end, so I have around 7-8 questions, which I'm going to pose to my panelists here today. And then at the end, I'll open it up for Q&A session. And I would want students to ask questions. So if you have any questions, feel free to type it in the chat, or let the moderator know so that we can take these questions. It will be very good to get those kind of questions coming from you. And so the first question I would want in fact, I want to start is to get my, all the guests to give their particular introduction a bit more than what I have talked about them, and then probably throw some light on their perspective on Sino-Indian film relations. So first, I'll start with our guest. She's based in UK at the moment, Shiying. So Shiying, over to you, and I'll just stop sharing this, and over to you, Shiying.
Hello, everyone. At the moment, I am a PhD candidate in the UK. I'm in my final year. I just finished the chapter the whole project I work on China Film Corporation, the development of this largest state-owned film corporation, its development in the 2010s. This chapter, I particularly look at the co-productions under the Belt and Road initiatives under this specific political context. I look at those production mode and the narrative strategies for these co-productions, including Indian-China co-productions, and also another one is a China-Russian one. My argument is so these films, there are 3 films in total after China and India signed the co-production agreement. Like the host said, they are all China lead production mode. They project pro-China like a state approved Chinese like image of China in the co-productions. That's definitely embedded in the China soft power strategy. And this is my observation. I analyzed two of them. Definitely, Jackie Chan, as you said, is involved in this. In this two of the three co-productions, and it definitely embedded the kung fu as very attractive Chinese cultural elements, and he used his global image to promote China around the world. I can I see this is like a new direction for China's co-productions, especially after China and China UK China US relation kind of uh, has a little bit problem at the moment. So especially this company I'm looking at can shift its co-production strategy from co-producing with Hollywood to improve China's soft power to co-produce with the BRI countries, like the countries China want to collaborate under the Belt and Road initiatives. That's at the moment is my finding.
All right. So thanks, Shing. And I'll move on to Shri. Shri Kishore is joining us from Hong Kong at the moment. So Shri, would you like to provide your perspective on Sino-Indian film relations and especially with your own experience being in Hong Kong?
Hi everyone, this is Sri Kishore from Hong Kong. Thanks for giving an opportunity. I've been living in Hong Kong for last 15 years and I've been watching Chinese movies and Hong Kong movies here. But last 15 years, what I observed is like only the very big productions, like only 3 or 4 happen all these years. I haven't seen any small productions or independent filmmakers collaboration. Even when I started making my own movie in Hong Kong, which is a Cantonese movie, I got very least support when I was making. So I really don't know whom to approach, like how to proceed with the collaborations. Even I tried best to approach few government departments, but it was very least in my view. I think it's very good to collaborate to both the countries and make movies because there are a lot of stories there to tell, like from Hong Kong point of view or China point of view or from Indian point of view, especially the human relationships, because we both share same kind of emotions here. So I think somebody should come forward to give a lot of information how to collaborate and to make a lot more movies in future.
All right. And Shri, you made a film recently and
Yes.
it has got lots of news. So I would want you to show the trailer when it's possible. So if you can, do you have it on to share or?
Let me try. You are, shall I try now or maybe?
Yeah, if you can share that so that people get an understanding as to, so we can get this done during the introduction time itself. So
Yeah, I'm trying.
Okay, you set yourself up and then first we'll go to the two other panelists. That's and great. Then I'll come back to you.
Yeah.
So again, this question goes on to now to Abbas and then I'll speak to Chayu and then to Chandra. So Abbas, if you are there, turn on your camera and then provide your perspective, please.
So briefly, in order to introduce myself, as half of the introduction you've already given, we both went to the film school together, me and Vikrant, and ever since then, I have been working, making programs for TV, making documentary films. So the most recent one, I made in Kashmir. Prior to that was a documentary for National Geographic, which was for the the decade of 90s in India. So everything, all socio-political, cultural stuff and stuff. And besides, were making programs for TV and making documentary films. Then I, you know, working for the digital and social media. So making video content and setting up videos department for publication houses, media houses. So in a nutshell, so last 20 years, or rather you can say, this is what I've done all my life. Um, um, in between, I have also been involved in a little bit of academic work, so being connected with some universities. Now, coming on to the subject for the day, um, I think, I mean, first of all, I would like to thank Vikrant for inviting me over for this. This particular subject is not something that that I have been discussing very often, and perhaps this is the first opportunity for me to talk about Indo-Chinese collaboration in cinema. Um, uh, as Vikrant said, even I share the same experience that through our childhood. It was the Bruce Lee movies, and then later on Jackie Chan and stuff like that. So one thing essentially I was thinking about is that perhaps our collaboration, or say the cinema highway between India and China has mostly been one way. It has been mostly that that our cinema has been watched over there, whereas the Chinese cinema that has been coming to us has rather been coming via Hall. It was not really a direct sort of exchange, and and in fact, as we see, as we look back into the history of both the countries, there is a significant amount of presence of Chinese art and craft and culture in our history. I mean, if you look at our art and artifacts, and the Chinese identities were there in our textile, were there quite abundantly in our craft work, even though whether these craft work was being executed by Persians. If I see in the Awadh region, all these historical monuments like Chota Imam Bada, Bada Imam Bada, and you see those Chinese identities over there. Those elements, those caricatures, and even things like dragons and stuff, being made on those buildings. In spite of the fact that those buildings were originating from Islamic perspective. So and when you see the costumes, all these Nawabs and people in the Awadh region, or even in the Mughal dynasty, the kurta that they were wearing, that textile and the print and the designs, and a lot of elements on that were coming from there. Um, so essentially, perhaps where we would have been more of like natural sort of buddies in terms of sharing our culture and craft and stuff. Unfortunately, it has not really sort of it has not really happened because of various issues that we all know. But not getting into that, perhaps how to sort of move forward. I would say that a lot of I mean, personally, that I feel that being spending most of my time in the small cities, in the small towns in India, not in the urban centers, not in the metropolitan cities, but as we all know, India is, I mean, the large proportion of India is suburban, is villages, small towns. There is a lot of misinformation, you know, about Chinese culture and Chinese society. That is something I personally feel needs to be dispelled. Something, you know, things which are like really strange and weird and stupid. You know, I mean, for example, that I mean, a bad example would be that that people in India, by and large, would assume that that they have strange eating habits, which is not the case. You know, but these are things, you know, which in today's WhatsApp era, in today's social media era, it is very easy to sort of to push across a very stupid, very sort of nasty propaganda about anybody, you know, and when there is a certain political tension and stuff, you know, it becomes even easier. Anyway, how I mean, I was just thinking of one particular film as an example, PK of Amir Khan. Um, and I was thinking that why was it so popular in China? You know, or let's say, for example, Three Idiots. And why not a historical drama like, say, a Padmavat? Okay. Even though
Yeah,
Padmavat was
Bas,
yeah.
we'll talk more about the analysis of the films by the Chinese side, and we won't give our perspective of Indian cinema in China. Let us reserve that for them to talk about. We'll give our
Sure.
perspective on Chinese cinema. So that's what we are doing in this panel. All right. So I'll move on to Chayu. So he can possibly provide his perspective on Indian cinema. You need to come here and take this because we are using this mic. That's the problem.
Okay, no problem. I'm Zhao Yu. I'm a colleague of Vikrant. But I want to say I'm a historian. I'm a film historian professionally. So maybe what my perspective might be a historical perspective. So what I want to say is that, you know, the Sino-Indian Film Corporation should be considered as a, you know, a product of the, you know, the cultural diplomacy between China and India. So actually, we need to trace back to the 1955. So in 1955, there is a really important policies, you know, joined between the India and China in a bilateral way, and so that is the 5 principles of peaceful coexistence. So in other words, it's also called a Panchshil Treaty. So this Panchshil Treaty becomes one of the important policy to guide China to fund collaboration with other countries, not only India, but actually this is agreement joined between the Prime Minister of China, Zhou Enlai, and the Prime Minister of India, Nehru, at that time in 1955. And after this, actually, in the 1950s, a lot of Indian films were circulated in China, especially one film called Avara. So that film is a huge box office hit in 1950s. When I ask, you know, when I ask my grandfather or my dad about Indian film, so what they talk about it would be the Avara, would be, you know, about that. Because it's about, you know, drifters, you know, just losing their hometowns, but that guy also keep really positive emotions in this kind of situation. That film actually got a really good box office result because at that time, you know, China, you know, is a socialist country, so probably they just feel like this guy should be a proletariat, something like that. But anyway, and I just want to say that, you know, the Indian films actually is a really important part of the, you know, the public's memories for the Chinese audiences when they have when they think about the experience of movie going. So, and just now also Vikrant showed some example about the Amir Khan, but actually why the Amir Khan can become so popular, because actually his films has been imported to China since 1990s. So, but then more and more films began being showing in China, and I think for a lot of Chinese audiences, they all know there is an Indian superstar called Amir Khan. So I think in this way we could say the Sino-Indian Film Corporation should be considered from a perspective of diplomacy, also should be considered from a perspective of the this kind of interest, the both countries' interest in the movie going, to look at a film from other countries, to watch a film from other countries. So I think this is my understanding. Thank you much.
Fantastic, Shayu. That was a very interesting perspective. And in India, we have not had that kind of an intense understanding of the film viewing, perspective of China as such. So you just mentioned the name of the movie Awara, and it was, of course, the lead hero was Raj Kapoor and also the producer of that film. And Awara has been the biggest hit, and Raj Kapoor's films were a big hit in the Eastern European countries. And he was the biggest superstar in the 1950s and 60s in the Eastern Europe. In fact, he got the highest civilian award by the Russians at that point of time. So whenever we talk about Raj Kapoor's cinema, we always talk about his popularity in Eastern Europe. But we never looked at that the kind of trajectory which was going on, the kind of discussion about a proletariat hero, which was happening in Russia, because that he was being hailed because of his, a kind of a simpleton from the village who's fighting for his rights, and same kind of emotional reactions he was getting in China as well. Probably a nice paper to do on China's, thing. Yeah, we'll talk more about that. So we have got another guest with us. Mr. Chandra Jha, and as I said, that he's doing work in both India and Nepal, and he is into film distribution, and he can provide us more a kind of a perspective on both in terms of how film distribution and reception of Chinese and Indian films are happening at the moment. So welcome, Mr. Chandra, and over to you.
Thank you, Kishore. Thank you very much for this International Film Festival. I would like to share my, the first-hand experience releasing movies in China. So, and also like the production experience. What we did is like I'm very active in China since 7-8 years. We also curate 8-9 Chinese film festivals. Beijing International Film Festival, Shanghai International Film Festival, Golden Rooster Film Festival, and Silk Road Film Festival, also Kung Fu Film Festival. What we did is 3 years ago, we acquired Indian cinema, Hindi cinema, Total Dhamal, directed by Inder Kumar, and then starred Ajay Devgan, Madhuri Dixit, and all other, the star. That's a franchisee of their Dhamal things. And likewise, we also acquired a film, Malayalam film called Yure, directed by Manu Ashokan. That also we got Chinese distribution. So these are 2 films which we sold in China. Also, we sold an Iranian animation film called Ghouls, still in in the process to release that film in China. If you ask me, and I can what's my experience in China is, Chinese are truly world audience when it comes to cinema. Yes, like when we talk about Indo-China cinema co-production, yes, as you have mentioned and other speakers also mentioned, after 2014, only 3 films have been made, But if you see the movie which India is making on theme of China, that started in 1946 by V. Shantaram, Dr. Kotnis Ki Amar Kahani. And if you go back, Dr. Kotnis is a very, very big figure in China. because he died in China while serving China and Japan war. But after that, not much has been done when it comes to the co-production between India and China. Yes, as you all have mentioned, how successfully some of Indian movies are in China. But on the other hand, if you see the Chinese experience or exposure of Chinese content in India, as you said, with the kung fu films, karate movies, and all, not much has been done. Whereas Chinese have done, like if you see the movie like Buddies India by Wang Wo, that those movie, and even in 2019 during Beijing International Film Festival, three projects have been like announced. One by Kabir Khan, Siddharth Anand, and there was one more project which is like by the Chinese producer, but nothing so far because of yeah, one of the project was Amir Khan Tare Jami Par, the remake, and then Siddharth Anand Jewel Thief. But because of COVID and various reasons, it could not take place. Coming back to, like as I was mentioning about the Chinese are the truly international audience, because most of the Indian movies or foreign content, they don't dub in Chinese. They just watch the movie in the subtitles. Like, for example, I watched Andhadhun in Beijing in a theater, totally packed, but it was not dubbed in Chinese. It was subtitled in Chinese. So likewise, many movies, if you see in China, they hardly dub any movies. So for me, it's for a world cinema maker, China is an amazing place when it comes to exercise their movies into China with just to subtitles because they want to hear your own original languages. So we have so far very good experience when it comes to showcasing our movies in China, and also we are trying to bring Chinese content to like the many other festivals, because China International TV is our client. We are buying their movie and we are selling to the Malaysia.
All right. Thanks, Chandra, for your insightful, kind of you're providing the kind of an idea as to what works and what isn't working. But and good to know that you have been doing so much of some various film festivals in China. So I'll move on to my next question from the panelists here. And this is a kind of a generic question and something which students are always interested in knowing, about our film taste. So I'm going to start with Shiying and Zhao to get to know about your Indian film viewing experience. What kind of films do you like or you've watched in terms of Indian cinema? And also try and give a bit of comment on what works for the Chinese audience in terms of Indian content. So I'll ask Shiying to share her thoughts first.
Hiya. I saw like one imported Indian film in China was like really a box office hitter. It's called Bungo, 摔跤吧爸爸. A couple of years ago, it was really about like box office winner. That narrative definitely touched on one of the struggles shared by a lot of Chinese females. It was called like boy preference tradition in China, and then so this tells about the like two girls try their best to wrestling and then win the champion. They definitely showed their efforts to challenge that tradition. So, and then they get the champion. They kind of triumph over that tradition. And that's celebration shared among a lot of Chinese audiences, especially females. So that's, I think, the click between the two cultures can be like can be find in the nowadays shared struggles to the social pressures, for example, like under the traditional cultures. Also follow up by Abbas ideas about the superficial or stereotypical scenes, like the band identity stuff. in the film, this is both like Indian elements and then Chinese identity kind of blended. For example, there's like typical representation of Indian, like carry religion, that kind of stuff. So it's not like like something really fancy or innovative at the moment, because it looks like 1980s Bond film. Now I noticed that there are two films under production. I noticed from online news. It's called Love in Beijing and Zookeeper. They kind of change the production mode. They want to challenge that China-led co-production mode. So at the beginning, they would have their writers work together from two sides. They would develop the script together instead of China provide or China control the script. And also, its strategy is like a melodrama and comedy. So basically, this idea raised by Han Sanping is a previous CEO of China Film Corporation. It said it's want to the audiences laugh and cry, and that emotion can shared among like large number of audiences. So that might be the future of co-production. The opportunities can be there, like a more balanced production mode, and then the melodrama and comedy genre would be like, say, different from the Hollywood action films, or films with a lot of 3D or computer generated scenes, and it can be like fancy to Chinese audiences. That's my point
All
of
right,
view.
thanks. Thanks, Shing, and that was good. And
Thank you.
and you mentioned about Dangal, which is still date India's highest grossing film, and thanks to the Chinese box office return, where it made millions and millions of rupees, and it's India's highest grossing film because of China's box office returns. It was almost more than 5 times what it earned in India. So yeah, so that's and then
Yeah.
another thing which you talked about was about having these kind of connection in terms of films which are more family oriented, or which are more about real stories that connects the two countries. And one of the things that connects the countries is a kind of a common culture as well. So yeah, some interesting kind of linkages that you made about how we look at the co-productions. But before we get into the discussions around that, I'll speak to Jayu about his films that he liked.
Okay. Yeah, so but about the Indian films, so what I want to say is that because I'm a film historian, so I really like watching some really classic films in the world cinemas. So when thinking about Indian films, so probably the most important figure might be Satyajit Ray, right? Satyajit Ray.
Satyajit Ray.
Yeah, Satyajit Ray. So I remember when I went to it should be Shanghai Internet Film Festival. So I watched a film called Pandar Pachali. So that film is so amazing. Pandar Pachali, right? Yeah, Pandar Pachali. Yeah. So that film just drove me cry. So that film probably one of the most moving film I have seen so far. So some like these kind of masterpieces, definitely they could be showing in some international film festivals because they are classic. But about the films, normally we can find in the cinemas, not in the film festivals. Some films just publicly released. So I think there is one film, so probably I want to emphasize. So that's a film called, actually, I know this film, and it's from a Chinese film called The Sheep Without a Shepherd. So that film actually is very popular. It's just like a crime film, but it's released in 2019, in China, and then that film also was released in the UK. So I watched that film in the UK actually, and then I just found some information about the film, and then I just found that this film is an adaptation of an Indian film made in 2013. So that film, I think in Indian they call it Drishyam, something like Drishyam. Yeah, Drishyam. So, but I knew this film because it's popular. The adaptation of this film in Chinese is so popular. So this just reminded me, okay, maybe Indian film is not just only about our stereotypical image of it. It's just singing and dancing and wearing that kind of costume. No, they also have some social dramas. They also have some crime films, really marvelous. So this is my understanding of the Indian films. Thank you.
Great, Jaya. Interesting take on Drishyam, that there is a remake of Drishyam in China as well, and you watched that and you liked it. And Drishyam was actually made in a regional language film from Malayalam, and then it was remade into a Bollywood Hindi film. And recently, the part 2 of Drishyam, another sequel of Drishyam, came in, and it has been raking in lots of money in the Indian box office because that has become very popular. So probably we'll see another remake in Chinese as well. That would be good. I'd like to watch that. So yeah, my same question now is to Sri, Abbas, and Chandra. So about your Chinese film viewing. Okay, so changing the perspective. So what, as an Indian, what kind of Chinese films you have watched and what has been your preference? So this time I'll start with Kishore, then go to Chandra, and then to Abbas. Kishore, feel free to share your film's trailer if you want to. All right, over to you.
Yeah, Kishore, I'm trying to share the trailer, but I sent a message to you. See if you can.
Okay, the moderator.
See, for example, in China, most of people, they know only Amir Khan, but in India we have so many big stars, and they are making very good movies. For example, just like Drishyam, Andhadhun, and the box office in China is very good. I see just like that. In India, we only know Jackie Chan from China, Jet Li. But there are so many filmmakers in Hong Kong and China. There are very good movies, social dramas. For example, I think it's Jet Li's Ocean Heaven. It's a father and son drama. It's a so emotional story. And there is a recently Hong Kong movie also came in. It's about the boy, handicapped boy running, going for Olympics. So there's compared to Indian, like in India, we more focus on commercial drama, but in China, I see a lot of emotional family issues, dramas in China. Yeah, that's a more interesting for me. So that's what I'm saying. Like we have common the emotion sharing. It will be good. Like if we make those kind of movies in remake in India as well, just like Chinese, they're making Drishyam kind of movies in China, just like Jet Li movies, not only for the action drama, like social elements, emotional drama can be made in India as well. That's my point of view.
Yeah, thanks, Sri. And that's what I've also seen and noticed in India, filmmakers like Zhang Yimou or from Hong Kong, Wong Kar-wai. These filmmakers are very popular. The films like Hero and other, previous films of Zhang Yimou, we have had so many film festivals back in India, and Wong Kar-wai's films have been loved by, especially in the urban film goers who really engage with foreign films. These films have been very, very popular, and many other filmmakers who have made their mark. So over to Chandra for his perspective, his kind of films that he likes in Chinese cinema. And
interestingly, if like they like the melodrama movies, Chinese, and then those success story, and especially when Xiyang is telling us about the wrestling daughters, which is known in China like wrestling daughters, the Dangal. They love to watch. Chinese love to watch the movie when their aspiration, public's aspiration, is getting realized, and also those struggle story, because China has a huge middle class population. So, those struggle stories always great in China. That is why, Bahubali 1, Bahubali 2 didn't work, Those kind of cultural content in China is not working, apart from movie like Andhadhun or things are getting success. My experience in China, if you see the movies made in Chinese movies are they are the great movies. Unfortunately, it's not coming to this part of the world, like The Postman. There was a movie called I don't know the Chinese name, but the movie was called Harmonium in my memory. Amazing film if you see those films. Even in Hong Kong, there are a lot good movies are being made. Now we do have OTT platforms where we can watch Chinese movie or Cantonese movie or Hong Kong movies. But still, still India, the way Indian movies getting released in China, we cannot expect seeing those kind of movie in India, except Jackie Chan is there, Tony Yen is there. By the way, we are trying to work roping Tony Yen in one of our movies, which we are going to produce. Could be an Indian Chinese production. And Vijayendra Prasad, the father of Rajmouli, SS Rajmouli, he's writing a story of one of our proposed co-production between India and China. So again, back to your question, Kishore, Chinese movies are the great, and we must bring those movies apart from the only action movies in India to watch. And even it is on OTT platforms, much of the people are not doing, knowing about those, like Mountain Hunters. Like if you have seen those movies, Mountain Patrol and all, it was amazing movies about the environment and the way they are saving. So I love watching Chinese movies, and then would love to bring those movies in India or Nepal or this part of the world, not only through the festivals, but also to kind of theatrical releases. And I would like to play the trailer of one of our movies, which we had a Chinese subtitle. So let me see, and it was a successful in China during into the festival circuit. So let me see if I can play it or not. And it won the Best Cinematography Award in Beijing Film Festival also. So I shared to Ambrish. Ambrish, can you play it from your end?
No, I mean the technical host from our side, Sukriti Arora or Pramod Pandey, they can do it. You have sent it to me on WhatsApp.
Yeah, I did.
Okay, just a minute. Okay, I'm sending it to my team.
Please check now, sir. Please check now. I think you'll be able to share the screen. Please check now.
Oh my, we are very poor. We are into cinema making very, very poor when it comes to, we can make cinema, but we cannot share the, it's on.
Okay, Chandra, I think let's sort this out. You can do that in the background, and I'll move on to the next question. And when I come back,
okay, sure.
Show your thing by that time. All right. So my next question is same question goes to Abbas. So Abbas, if you are there still in your car, you can address our question about your Chinese film viewing experience.
Yeah, thanks very much. The other panelists have given a lot more valuable insights, which I can't really sort of, add to. Two things essentially that I wanted to share. Basically, after hearing all of you and from whatever that I have, I have done a little analysis about the Chinese cinema in the Indian perspective or in the Indian context, or to be received by the Indian audience. For example, a film like, let's say, going in the opposite direction, a film like PK does really well both in India and China. Essentially, because the millennial audience, the new audience, the young audience today is all about sort of challenging the status quo. Is all about sort of questioning the status quo and being non-conformist. That essentially sort of becomes the central point. Secondly, is to sort of create an ecosystem for the Chinese cinema content or the Chinese media content in the Indian media space. I see all the work that has been happening on cinema and in the collaboration of cinema. It requires some kind of an ecosystem, around it, which can facilitate this. There is where on the social media, um, which is sort of which is a short format content, which is easy to kind of put together content, and which sort of moves rapidly, and creates a greater visibility. Now, in order to sort of have that ecosystem, I personally feel that that we need to have certain incubation programs within the media landscape, or let's say like the academic institutions that you all have, and you all are doing excellent work, is to sort of have some young media professionals or students who are graduating from there, who are Indians, who gets who takes initiative in that area, and sort of create the that ecosystem which basically sort of nurtures and circulates a lot many small videos in the digital space, on which you basically establish or further take the big ticket cinema of China to sort of ride on. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Abbas. And Chandra, have you sorted out your film that you wanted to screen? Or Amrish, if you want to play it from the studio side.
Sir, I'm sharing it. I'm sharing it, sir.
All right.
പുതിയ പോസ്റ്റ്മാൻ പട്ടാളത്തിലായിരുന്നു. കാല് വെടിയുണ്ട കയറിയതാ.
ഇവിടങ്ങളിലുള്ള പിള്ളേരെല്ലാം ഇപ്പൊ പട്ടാളത്തിലാ. എന്റെ 2 മക്കളും മിടുക്കന്മാരാ.
അവൻ വരും.
നമ്മുടെ പോസ്റ്റ്മാൻ നല്ല കണിയാ.
പട്ടാളത്തിലേക്കുള്ള തെരഞ്ഞെടുപ്പല്ല, ചാകാൻ ആളെ എടുക്കുന്ന സ്ഥലമാണ്.
നിന്നെ തൊടും പൂനിലാവ് എന്നെ തൊട്ടത് നീ അറിഞ്ഞോ?
ഒളിച്ചോടിയാ കൊല്ലുന്ന ശത്രുക്കളെ കൂട്ടത്തിലുള്ളവർ തന്നെ ആയിരിക്കും. അങ്ങനെ യുദ്ധത്തിന്റെ നിയമം.
എന്റെ കുഞ്ഞിനെ കൊതിച്ചു വന്നിരിക്കും. കൊച്ചുകൂടാ നിന്റെ കമ്പിന് ഉൾക്കടം തന്നെ പിടിക്കണ്ട.
ഓണം കയറാമൂല നടക്കുന്ന യുദ്ധം എന്നെയും സഹിക്കാം.
Great, thanks, Chandra. That was a very interesting film. And it was again in a southern Indian language. I couldn't get anything out of it, but I could really appreciate the visuals that they were there. It was there, so understand why it won the Best Cinematography Award. So I'm very much interested in watching this. Is this available on any OTT platform at the moment? You have to unmute yourself, Chandra.
Yeah. It is not, it is available one of the OTT platform Roots video, or I can send you the screener.
All right, that will be really good. Thanks so much for sharing that. And since we are sharing our films, so I'll request Sri to share his Cantonese made Indian film. So it will be interesting to see the film's trailer and also to get your perspective as to what prompted you to make a film in Cantonese and what was the response that you got. So over to you, Kishore.
Yeah, I'm trying to share. Can you? Okay. Can you see the link video?
Yeah, now we can see that. Yes.
Yeah.
Now you can play that.
Sound okay?
喂，起身未啊？幾多點啊？知唔知醜啊？瞓到成隻豬咁。個個淨係認得 Indian 咖喱，冇錯，我叫阿星。你傻㗎？攞交咗錢去賭，你輸咗咁點啊？今日冇得輸啊！我車住個財神爺啊！अरे चीटिंग करके जीता तू खुद अपने पैसे आ रहा है साला लूजर किसको बोला बे係你個妹啊你知唔知你個妹啊做緊3份मैं नहीं रहना चाहता यार महीने तक भी तो सेटल हो सकता हूँ मुझे समझ नहीं आता आपको क्या खुजली है तू ही रे हाँ तू ही मेरा ख्वाब रे 點解啲印度仔咁唔講道理嘅？喂，佢講咩啊？我哋咖喱仔啊！啊，你個死雲吞妹，大聲啲！ Vicky， 你知唔知啊？佢已經開始愛 Jasmine 啦。你把酸酸反晒光，咁我實望你啦！我依家打。Jasmine，I love you。Jasmine， 接受我啦，我真係好愛你啊！我可以為你做任何嘢。你講真㗎？係啊。你係咪黐線㗎？你搞到我好唔舒服啊！你冇嘢做，你去揾份工啊嘛。 曾抱住的，我最愛的，沉醉共你的甜蜜記憶，全怪自己。我媽成日同我講，如果愛一個人，就要去急事去表達。我睇過晒啲片啦，佢死叉仔擺明抽你水，你做咩唔同我講？ 我想問個印度仔有咩好啊？又冇工做，又唔識廣東話，喺香港根本生活唔到嘅。你跟住佢有咩好啫？你唔使食嘅，你唔使住嘅，你跟住翻印度啊？我哋朋友又唔同啦，生活方式又唔同啦，屋企背景都唔同。我哋好似一個交叉，根本就係兩個方向，我唔想你嘥時間。好，1、2、3，好。
Thanks for that, Kishore. That was a fantastic trailer. I'm interested in watching this film. So is it, same question, is it available on OTT or what do you plan for the film? I thought your film, I saw that it went for almost 8 or 10 weeks in Hong Kong in theater.
Yes, wave, very serious wave. We released the movie. It went 8 weeks in Hong Kong and it got selected for several film festivals and it is available on Disney Plus here, but not in India. But it's available on iTunes.
Okay, available on iTunes. All right, that's good. So,
Thank you.
What was your experience and what prompted you to work in a Cantonese-based film like this? And yeah, and I can see a kind of a similarity between what we were doing in Australia. There are a couple of Australian Indian films being made, and in fact, I was advisor to a couple of two Australian Indian films where they used a similar structure of using a Caucasian, like an Indian falling in love with a Caucasian in Australia. So, and one of my friend, he made a film called Love in Sydney, and which was a Bollywood and Australia co-production. So it really worked well. So yeah, you tell me about your experience.
Yeah, actually, basically, I'm from Hyderabad. I made 3 Telugu movies before in Hyderabad, and I moved to Hong Kong as a dance teacher. And same time, I teach dance here to Hong Kong people, Bollywood dance. And same time, I travel to India every 1 year, 2 years. I make movies there. But after a few years, I suddenly thought of making a movie in Hong Kong, just like normal, regular Indian movie or any Telugu, my mother tongue's movie, like a Telugu movie in Hong Kong. But suddenly one day, I thought it's a good idea to make a Cantonese movie, because every day when I teach dance classes to my Hong Kong students, all of them are girls, and they always ask me so many questions, just like why about bangles, like bindi, the saris, the costumes, Indian festivals. They ask a lot of questions about Indian culture. So then I thought maybe it's a good idea to add some Indian culture, make a movie in Cantonese, because nobody tried in Hong Kong before that. And I'm the only one person in Hong Kong filmmaker, Indian filmmaker living in Hong Kong. And they always ask me questions about Indian songs, like why do they have songs, what kind of songs they have. They always ask me questions to give some Indian songs links. And I wanted to add some songs in Indian movie, in her Cantonese movie, but normally in Chinese movies they don't have songs much actually. So I thought maybe it's a good idea to make a story between Indian boy or Chinese girl, or Chinese boy or Indian girl. So the idea started from there, the original idea. So that I can show Indian culture and the Chinese culture, because my wife is Chinese, and I can add some songs. So both sides I can balance and show how the Indians living in Hong Kong. That's where the basic idea started.
Yeah, that's really good, and I'm very interested to watch this film. And I worked in a Indian Australian film called Un-Indian, where the cricket bowler Brett Lee, Australian cricket legend Brett Lee, starred along with Tanishta Chatterjee, and I had a minuscule role in that, and it was a very kind of a fun movie. So I could draw some parallels between what was happening in your film and the film that we worked on there back in Australia. So moving on to the next part. So I'll just keep some time for Q&A, and I'll request the moderator to see if there are any students who can send you some questions, because I would be very interested in getting students to ask questions, and it would be really interesting for the panelists to respond to those. So probably one last question to you all panelists, and if I don't get any questions from the students, then I'll use my reserve questions to ask you. So one question is always about the challenges in this space of Sino-Indian film space. And one of the things which is always daunting and which we never talk in open, and probably getting into that will also be problematic, is the kind of political tension which goes on between India and China, and somewhere that becomes a kind of a stumbling block for any kind of co-productions to happen for long. But after the signing of co-production treaty, I think that avenue got opened up, and just because of the COVID, that avenue in a way got stuck in between. So I'm still looking forward for more Indo-Chinese co-productions, but because of COVID, there was a new avenue which came up through the OTT platforms. And I want to get a perspective from the Indian side about how through OTT, Chinese contents are available now, and from the Chinese scholars, I want to get their perspective of if Indian contents are making its way on Chinese OTT platforms. So this time I'm going to start with Chandra, then we'll go to Abbas, and then we'll go to Sri and Chayu, and then we'll end with Shiying. So Chandra, your perspective on OTT and China, specifically talking about OTT content in India and Chinese productions and projects.
Okay, so first of all, I would like to talk about the OTT in China, where where you can watch Indian content. So in China, there are OTT platforms called Youku, and then we have Tencent, Alibaba, iQIYI. So these are the platform where you can watch the movies, foreign movies, along with Chinese movies. And every, like iQIYI, Tencent, Alibaba, Youku, they have lot Indian contents, including this web television, Indian television series also. So there are a lot for Chinese to watch Indian content in China. So including this Secret Superstar or Wrestler Daughters or Batman, all movies you can watch is there. When it comes to Prime Video or Netflix or Disney Plus in India, we have very few movies, Chinese movies you can watch it. But there are a few movies. I think some of the Omkar Y movies you can watch it, and also I think Buddies in India you can watch it somewhere, but not much.
Okay, not much according to you. So we'll move on to Abbas and then Shri. So Abbas, question is about how much Chinese content is available there in Indian platforms, Indian OTT platforms. So over to you, Abbas.
Vikrant, can you have me in the end, please, on this one?
Okay, in the end, so Shri, you bring in the experience of being in Hong Kong and also being an Indian. So what is your perspective, Shri? Over to you.
I think actually I agree with Mr. Chandra, what he said. It's very hard to find some Chinese content in platforms. And I think, yeah, I totally agree with Chandra. No more extra points actually from my side.
Okay, yeah, and then that's yeah. If I start getting into the politics of it, it will become a kind of a problematic thing. So I'm just going to avoid that at the moment. And Abbas, so you might take some more time. So I'll move on to Jhayu and talk about his particular perspective on OTT platforms and how much content they have here.
But before I talk about my Chinese experience, I want to ask a question maybe to Vikrant. So I don't know whether in India you can use Netflix to watch some films or.
Yes, you can use Netflix, Amazon. They are big, and lots of Chinese content on Netflix. Especially
I agree.
In terms of martial art content, there's full of Jackie Chan and Bruce Lee films and Wong Kar-wai and Zhang Yimou. All these films are there in India.
Yeah, exactly. So I think maybe in the countries outside of China, the most useful platform to find Chinese film probably is still the Netflix, because there are a lot of Chinese TV series, Chinese films which can be viewed on these global OTT system. OTT platform, I think, yeah. But for the Chinese platform, I think Chandra just now just gave us a really good, interpretation of this kind of landscape, this kind of industrial landscape of OTT. So we've got some platform like iQIYI, we've got Youku, we've got Tencent Video. But here, I just have some findings before this industrial panel. I found that actually on these three platforms, we cannot find a lot of Indian film compared to other countries, such as like Japanese film or like French films. So I feel like, although we know that Indian film industries each year probably could produce hundreds of films or thousands of films, but in iQIYI, I found that only around 140 films could be found, 140 Indian films, also including some classic like Avara, also Amir Khan's films, but only 140. But in Tencent Video, this number would be less, just 48. Yeah, 48 indie films could be watched on Tencent. So about Youku, I don't know. I have not found any data from Youku, but nowadays Youku become a really small platform. A lot of people just don't use Youku anymore, in my opinion. But from this platform, we could say Indian cinema, the market of Indian cinema seems smaller compared to some country like Korea, Japan, especially Japan, because Korea recently, I think China got some issues, diplomatic issues with Korea. So normally all the Korean films cannot be watched in time. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so this is the findings I got. But I want to show another thing. In China, we have gray area is the pirated videos.
Yes.
So, so we could have found a lot of these kind of pirated DVDs or Blu-rays of Indian films. So if there are any like really good blockbusters in India, normally they could be found in Chinese market, especially Taobao or somewhere else. Also in Ningbo, I really go to some place called the private cinema. So actually it is a kind of cinema where they show the party videos. So in Ningbo, I usually go to one, but that one, weekly, they would show some new Indian films, a party.
That's fantastic. And there is this whole culture of pirated small town cinemas back in India as well. So every corner of these kind of small areas, you'll find these kind of. Earlier, it used to be very, very big, during 80s, 90s till 2000. Now it has come down because of all these OTT platforms. But yeah, very interesting insight there, Jayu. Plus, you have the numbers in your hand. How many films are there? So that's another amazing insight about that. Going back to the moderator. Oh, no, sorry, we have got Shing as well. Sorry, I missed your Shing there. So Shing, your particular perspective on OTT contents and how things are here in China. Over to you, Shing.
I don't know much about like that issue inside in China, but I know for example, I'm a overseas student, so Chinese diaspora would find videos online like CIFFI and also with Netflix, that kind of stuff. But particularly it's like pirate website. We can watch like film and TV series, that kind of stuff. There is, I can see no Indian category films. There are like Mandarin, Cantonese, English, Korean, Japanese, Spanish, French, German, and Italian, even Thailand films. But there's lack of like a specific category for Indian films. For other things, for me, if I go want to watch particular Indian films, I would just go YouTube and then rent or buy it, that kind of stuff.
All right, thanks Shane for that. All right, so we'll open up for audience Q&A now. So we have got very limited time in hand. So moderator Pramod, if you have any questions from the audience, please let us know. And you can ask directly from your side if you have questions.
Let me just see. Yeah, sir, there is a question from one of the students of BAJMC who is asking that do you feel that any kind of political interference would have any bearing on the popularity of Indian films in China and vice versa? And do you also see the kind of impression that Indian films are making in China? Do you also see that in future the Chinese films would also be translated in our Indian languages and would continue to make some impression here? So what are your comments on that, sir?
All right, so is this question directed to anyone, or shall I just ask?
Sir, no, it is not directed. It's a general question that has come to my person.
So, Jayu, would you like to respond to that? And Shing, if you want to add to this, then please do.
I don't think so. I think, the diplomatic relationship between China and India, it's not really, how to say, not really problematic in my opinion. Although there might be some fears, it's about the boundary because we share the national boundary. So actually, I heard that in the last few years there is some political issues about the boundaries. Also, there might be some battles happening there. But generally, I think the relationship between China and India is not bad compared to the relationship between China and Korea. Yeah. And because what happened to Korea actually because a Korean government bought the missiles from America, and then a lot of the Chinese diplomatic, governors feel like this would be a huge threat and to the safety of China. So then, a lot of the Korean films, so they are just banned. Although a lot of film fans want to watch Korean films, like something like the Parasite, but they cannot be viewed, online or cinema in China, although it's an Oscar winner. But I think a lot on OTT recently we also have a lot of Indian films. For example, I remember this we got a film called According. So I think that film is an adaptation of a French short film, because I already told that film, French version and short film, and to my student. But then I found out there is an Indian version. That sounds in theaters. So I feel like it's quite interesting. Yeah, so I don't think this would be the diplomacy would be a huge issue. This way. Thank you.
Thanks, Jayu. There is a very different perspective in India that I'm very sure of. All right, I'm not going to comment on that much, but yeah, Shiying, what is your perspective on this particular question?
Well, I think in the near future, like Zhao Yu said, might be like not very promising that results, because also India not joined the Belt and Road Initiative. I'm not really sure about the co-production, like the two I mentioned, the Love in Beijing and Zookeeper. They kind of I couldn't find any information in the annual report from the company I analyzed. So I think there's something wrong. It should be released in 2017 and 2018, that kind of that time, but they would I didn't see anything recently come up. So I don't know specifically what's wrong with that two films. Also, I'm also considering, like, in long term, there might be like an issue, like for China or both sides, like, say, how to melt the two culture together with respect. That's like really a challenge I would see, because it's not say we don't show Carrie, for example, the stereotypical elements in the film. It's like more like nuances and understanding, a certain level of understanding by both sides. Also, another challenge, the second challenge is the censorship. Censorship recently become tighter, so I'm not really sure, like, when it's going to be like more open. Also, I've also noticed that an observation, like some Chinese diasporic or Hong Kong filmmakers, they move out outside China. A lot of rumors saying a lot of Chinese mainland directors move out from China. They want to only create content on maybe Netflix. They will create content sell for overseas, like, platform, to avoid the censorship because it's too tight.
All right, very important point about censorship there. Yeah. So yeah, Pramod, do you have any more questions? Probably we can take 2 or 3.
No, sir, there is no more question from the audience.
No more questions. Okay.
If
then,
there is anyone who would want to ask, I would still request them to send the questions on the chat box.
No, I think, Pramod, it's better to wind up and you can make the closing remarks once Vikrant Kishore closes the session.
All right. So, okay, we are running out of time. Yes, I just saw the time again here. So firstly, a big thanks to all the panelists here. Thanks to Shiying, Chandra, Kishore, Jayu, and Abbas for sharing their perspective on Sino-Indian film relations and how things are going. And it was very insightful. I could, get some new perspective on how things are going on. And it is also very important from, as an academic for me to see that students in India, especially, get to know a bit more about Chinese films and get interested beyond the martial art genre, which is very popular in India, but look at some of these new Chinese filmmakers and even the Chinese auteurs. There are very many Chinese auteurs out there whose films are really very interesting. And of course, Hong Kong films have been a kind of a traditional turf for lots of Indians to engage with. So Hong Kong cinema, but now we combine both Hong Kong and Chinese cinema together as well. So before we close from our side, I'll get our head of school, Professor Filippo Gallardi, to say his closing for this festival. Thank you all for joining, and over to Professor Filippo Gallardi.
Hello, thank you everybody. And yeah, I think I say most of the things I had to say in the opening. So I just thanks everybody for organizing these two panels, and they were very, very interesting. I liked both of them for different reasons, but I think that the common reason is the fact that we have this opportunity to involve people from three different countries, and that despite the difficulty that we had with the technology, is also the strength of the technology, that despite being able to meet face to face, allows us to meet virtually. And so thank you everybody, and I hope that next time we will manage with the reopening, slowly the opening of China, we will manage to meet face to face. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much to all the panelists who are present here. And it has been a back-to-back session, and it was amazing to actually listen to the students first, and then the opinion and the inputs coming from the experts. I could totally feel, what the students were talking about, the COVID pandemic and the lack of exposure, no face-to-face contact, no face-to-face classes, and online classes has really created a lot of problems, especially when it comes to teaching cinema. However, I kind of differ on certain points that students mentioned when they said that they could easily get hold of the theory and not the technical aspects because that required a face-to-face contact. I believe even the theory was something that they could not grasp when they were taking online classes, for a simple reason that when you're in your own comfort zone and when you're mentally not prepared to grab something that is coming your way, it really becomes difficult to actually make use of any kind of information that is coming to you. However, the students have been battling it, and I'm very optimistic about the future that soon we'll have 0 cases, and we will be able to take classes and go for the exchange programs. Like, it would have been great if some of our students could have gone to these esteemed places, and some students from there could have come here. So that would have been great. And on the second panel discussion, where we talked about the future of the filmmaking in India and China, it really feels great to know that Indian films are gaining a lot of popularity in China. And it's kind of surprising that, films can reveal a lot about a particular culture. And people here in India are very interested in knowing about China, their culture, their people, how they think, how they behave, what their aspirations are, whether our aspirations match with their aspirations, and how we think. So in that case, I believe, opening up of this gateway through cinema would really be helpful for us to understand, the Chinese culture even better. I am surprised that we as Indians always want to know what is happening around. We are very cautious about who is living, in our neighborhood. But surprising that, we have such a big country, such a big economy right next to us, and we have still not been able to know more about them. So I'm very optimistic that this is going to open up. There's going to be a better exchange, and we'll get to see some amazing content coming from that side of the world. And I'm sure that they would be getting a lot of interesting content from this side of the world, and there will be better relations. And with this, I would like to thank everyone who has been present here, all the participants, all the panelists, Vikrant Kishore sir, for your consistent support during all CIFFIs that we have organized in the past. And with this, I would like to come to the formal vote of thanks. I would like to deliver the formal vote of thanks.
So with this, we conclude today's session. I, as a festival director of CIFFI, along with Dr. Vikrant Kishore, who is shouldering this responsibility along with me to steer this festival into this fourth year. So I thanks all to join in this session, and also in the earlier session, there is 2 back-to-back sessions, which were really fruitful. The panelists, the students in one panel and the experts in the other panel, and we discussed very diverse issues, and obviously the vital issues, as Pramod also pointed out, that the China and India, whatever happens on the political front or on the boundary front or on the cultural front, on the film front, but we know little about each other. So film could be the best medium wherein we can know about each other. So that should be promoted, since we belong to this media fraternity and film fraternity. So we should try to perform our roles to bridge, or if there are any gaps, and so that there's more people to people contact, and better films can be made and better exchanges of ideas can be made through filmmaking. So with this, formally we end this session. Thank you all.
Okay, so before we leave, I would just like to thank all the panelists for this exuberant panel discussion. Thank you very much. I would also like to extend my immense gratitude to the management of DME. Without the support of Mr. Aman Sani, Vice Chairman, Justice Bhavar Singh, Director General, and Dr. Ravikant Swami, Director, we would not have been able to come this far. I thank them for giving us this wonderful opportunity and the resources to execute the same. I'm also thankful to Dr. Amrish Saxena, Dean, DME Media School, Festival Director, CIFFI, Dr. Vikrant Kishore, Festival Director, and Dr. Susmita Bala, Head, DME Media School, and Festival Chief Associate Director for their constant guidance and encouragement at every step. I thank our partners for the collaborating with us in our effort. My gratitude also goes to the student body of DME Media School, SPARK, that is Students with Positive Attitude and Resonating Communication. I heartily thank our jury members, Mr. Nimish Kapoor, Dr. Gauri Chakravarti, Mr. Pankaj Rakesh, Mr. Praveen Nagra, Ms. Sakshi Bindal, Mr. Ramkishore Parcha, Mr. Satish Kapoor, and Mr. Lohit Lodwal for patiently and fairly watching all the movies and for giving their precious time and feedback. A special note of thanks to Dr. Manmeet Kaur, Dr. Manaswi Maheshwari, Mr. Vishal Sai, Mr. Madhav Sharma, Mr. Yogesh Sharma, Ms. Saima Parvez, Mr. Ashish Chatterjee, Dr. Sumedha, Ms. Sukriti Arora, Ms. Garima Jain, Dr. Yamini Khullar, Ms. Ritika Bora, Dr. Iram Rizvi, Ms. Deepika Zutshi, Ms. Hifali Chibbar, Ms. Divya Rastogi, Mr. Mayank Shukla, Mr. Abhijit Saxena, and Ms. Priya Yadav. I would also like to thank the student team of CIFFI who have worked tirelessly to make this festival happen. I must thank all our participants who submitted their engaging films. Thank you to our audience for joining the session. Thank you very much.